Good morning. It is 10:03, so I think everyone has had enough time to log on if they're going to log on. This is the Kentucky Housing public hearing for the Weatherization Department of Energy state plan for our formula funding. So I want to just say hello to everyone. Thanks for attending, and we are going to go ahead and get started. I am Kelly Reynolds with Kentucky Housing Corporation. I'm the Assistant Director over Housing Contract Administration, Single Family Programs. Weatherization does fall into part of my duties for the state. So that's what we're discussing today in the public hearing is our state plan. I'm going to advance us to the agenda. We will go over the DOE state plan, the master file, the health and safety plan, and the annual file. Mostly what I will be concentrating on are the changes. We've been operating this program at Kentucky Housing Corporation since 2009. So this has gone through several iterations. The state plan has. Every year there's something different that we have to focus on with the Department of Energy and change or to scrub up. So that's what we will be focusing on is what are we changing in the program and in the state plan guidance. And then the policy manuals will be reintroduced July 1st with those changes in them. So that's what we're doing. Then we will have a public comment section, which Ellery Gessler would run, and then we'll close out. Before I get started on the agenda, I know most of you are partners with the Weatherization program. A lot of you are subgrantees. I do just want to inform you that the executive director at Multipurpose did pass away last night. She had retired in recent weeks, and she did pass away last night. So I would like us to observe a moment of silence in respect for her. Okay. All right, so we will go ahead and dive in. I don't expect the meat of this presentation to take too long. It will really just depend on your comments. All right, so the Department of Energy, this is over our formula funding. So our formula funding, let me first explain how weatherization is funded. We receive an allocation from the Department of Energy under a formula grant. It's released every year, again, based on a formula to all 50 states and some additional territories. That formula grant, although it is a 3-year grant term, we receive that money every year and we have to submit a state plan each year. We also receive under the Department of Energy IIJA money, formerly known as Bill, Bipartisan Infrastructure Law funding. That money supports this program for now an additional until 2029. So it's been extended out, and we have about $52 million that was awarded to the state. So we now have like an additional amount of time to use that funding. It was 5 years, now it's 7 years. So that's another pot of the money that funds the weatherization program. It has a separate state plan, and any changes to that also requires a separate public hearing. In addition to that, we also have a 15% allocation from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services under the LIHEAP funding for weatherization. That money we use to braid into most of our jobs and into the current Department of Energy funding. The LIHEAP state plan that is submitted by the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. That is done in around September. And we do have they usually do a public hearing, especially with the legislative branch that oversees them, and with the state legislature usually in July. So we start working on those negotiations of what we want in that state plan in May. So just know that LIHEAP runs basically under our DOE rules. We have a few kind of set outs or set asides that are a little different, but we always keep the network informed on what those are. But it runs mostly under DOE rules, is why this DOE state plan is so important. So today we're going to highlight the changes in the master file, changes in the health and safety plan, and then we'll talk about the annual file because it lists out the changes, and we'll talk about the funding allocations. So we're going to go ahead and get ready with the master file. So under the master file, what we have done is we have removed any DEI references. That is guidance under the application guideline instructions that were reissued in March. So those were updated early March. So we have removed any DEI references. We didn't really have any in there that were specific diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we have removed anything that maybe resulted because of that. So any DEI or Justice 40 language, we have removed from the state plan per the application guidelines guidance. We also updated training certifications for KHC. So we have some additional training certifications that KHC staff have gotten since or received since the last DOE state plan. So we updated that and updated just some basic training knowledge or training information, but it is basically exactly like we have been running training in the past. So there shouldn't be any major changes there. We have been asked by DOE to do a priority point update, and I wanted to let you know about this because this just happened last week. I received an email on Tuesday from the Department of Energy that we were out of compliance and we needed to make that change in the state plan. So obviously that change didn't get into your documents, but I am telling you about this in the public hearing so that it is documented, and I'm going to show you what the change was, but we'll talk about that first. So elderly, if there are elderly household members, they are going to get priority points. And then if there are disabled household members, they are going to get priority points. So those are received as two different things. We were combining them. They are now separated out. That is to be in compliance with 10 CFR 440. So I want to let you know that. And that's probably not that huge of a change for you. We'll have to do a little programming change in software, but it's not a huge change. I think we used to run it that way. So we're just doing that way again. But also to be in compliance with 10 CFR 440, we had to get rid of the fuel source priority points. So in the network for years, I think Kentucky Housing inherited this priority point system in 2009. So this preceded KHC operating the weatherization program and administering that. Everyone got points for fuel source. So if they had electric, you got 8 points. If you had natural gas, you got 6 points. We have been directed by the Department of Energy as of last Tuesday to remove that out of the state plan and out of our program operations. So this is going to show you on a screen what we are proposing in the state plan now. You can see the strike through on the language of 8 points for electric and coal receiving 2 points. Now what it's going to look like is we're going to have 10 points for elderly, 10 points for disabled families, and then those fuel source types, that section will be removed out of the application. So this is going to be a change. It will have to go into software development that way. I know there's a huge issue with Empowers coming through, replacing Castanet. We will have to work through that. We will definitely get that updated in Hancock. That will maybe a faster fix than it will be for Empower. But this is just, we have been told and directed by DOE, we have to do this. So we are doing this and putting this in our state plan. So I wanted to let you know, I know it's going to cause some hiccups. We won't have any further direction on this until we get the language approved in the state plan. So it won't go into process until at the earliest July 1st. But I did want you to know that that is there. And as soon as we get a thumbs up, we'll start that in getting that programmed into the software and get a new application version out on our website. So moving on to the health and safety plan, we are going to this year request an additional 17% of health and safety funding. So the cap on health and safety has been 15% for several years. That is what DOE starts that cap out at. What we are seeing is we are seeing a lot of LIHEAP health and safety funding being used to kind of complement the DOE health and safety funding so we can stay below our 15% cap. We are coming in at around, in past years, around 14%. So what I decided to do, since we're so close and we're using so much LIHEAP and health and safety, is if we could use more DOE health and safety, we could free up some of our LIHEAP dollars to use for program funding. So for basic weatherization measures, which is, I think, a huge need right now. We just need to be able to free up some LIHEAP money. And this is a way to do that and not hurt our average cost per unit under the DOE guidelines. So I am making this request. It is put into input into our health and safety plan. So if you look at the health and safety plan online, you will see that, and you will see all of our justification as to why and what our health and safety budget looks like. So I don't think this is going to be a hard sell to DOE, because I think we have definitely some really good data on the past 5 years as to why we need to make that change. The only other thing that I have in here is we've been having some wall web issues since they did a fix on a bug um, under HVAC units. We have seen duct insulation and duct sealing fall off of our SIR calculations. So we have kind of a workaround. Mark sent that out last week about how to use IRMs. But if you cannot follow Mark's guidance on putting duct sealing and or duct insulation in as an IRM option until Oak Ridge, Tennessee can get this now new bug fixed on our duct insulation sealing, you can fit it under a health and safety. That should be a last resort option. You really need to talk to your monitor if you're going to have to go that route, and let them just make sure we have crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's to make that an IRM measure. But we are putting it in as a health and safety measure under mold and moisture, because certainly if we can't do duct insulation and duct sealing, it could lead to a mold and moisture issue, which is why we're trying to fit it in as an IRM. But it then becomes a health and safety issue if it doesn't work as an IRM under our IRM policy. So DOE advised us to do that just so we have it there in case we have to use it. And then what that would do is also open up, you could use your LIHEAP health and safety funding to pay for that as well. So we just want that in there. That's really the only changes on the health and safety plan. Under the annual file, what you will see is the big one is, most of you know in the network, that Kentucky River Foothills has decided that they want to give back the weatherization funding to Kentucky Housing and let us award that to someone else. So we worked very quickly, thanks to all of you as subgrantees who applied for the funding and did this. And we released an open application at the beginning of March to replace this. We worked really quickly to get that into our plans so that we could go to public hearing with this. But we are announcing that in the annual file, you will see that KCEOC was awarded that contract, and they have now taken over that territory. So they are named under that territory that Kentucky River Foothills was traditionally serving, which was Madison, Clark, Estill. I feel like I'm missing Powell. Those were the four, thanks, Patty. Those were the four counties that Kentucky River Foothills was traditionally serving. So now that contract was awarded to KCEOC. And the way that application process happened, we followed our state plan, opened that up to the network. We had 2 applications that were submitted by the deadline. We scored those applications. We had a scoring committee that scored those applications, and KCEOC was awarded that contract. So that is actually in the annual file. They are listed. The budget. I want to go over the budget for just a minute. So I'm going to close out of this for a second so you won't see that. You will see the budget. And let me make this a little bit bigger for you so you can quickly see the budget. So you'll see me turning my head. I'm just simply looking at another screen. So under the budget, we have $6.6 million awarded to us with DOE. Because we're under a continuing resolution, that is the same amount that we were given last year. DOE did reconfigure that amount. Admin, TNTA, and Weatherization Ready was refigured a little bit and recalculated from the year prior. You would have seen more money in the state plan last year because we were allotted rollover. This is the start of a new grant, so we are not awarded rollover. So we talked to you about jobs ending. We'll have more TA on that, more guidance on that, that your jobs all have to be finished by June 30th, because July 1, we are starting a new grant cycle, and that new grant cycle awards $6.6 million. So that is what you'll see in the budget. You will see budget categories of our grantee admin. That is at 15%. TNTA grantee, TNTA, and subgrantee TNTA. KHC supports our expenses for our monitors and our training center first with the grant TNTA. What we have left over after we support our expenses goes into subgrantee TNTA and is awarded out to all of the subgrantees in the network. And then you'll have, so you see this total column, that's the rolling total. On page 2, you'll see again additional program operations. We have $2.3 million. Health and safety at 17% is 412,000. Vehicles and equipment is 0 because we are funding that in the IIJA funding. Liability insurance, $135,425. That accounts for pollution insurance that is allotted to you now through the liability insurance category. Under page 3, you will see financial audits at $105,000, weatherization ready at $597,497. Where this now is different is we have 3 optional categories, which I want to talk about. You have energy audits, which we are funding at $412,896. The energy audits, we basically took a number of $1,100, funded it, and multiplied it by how many jobs we thought we would have completed. That's how many energy audits you get. And then we also took a deferral rate. So we looked at what our state deferral rate is and then took a lesser number and multiplied it by jobs to come up with this 412,896. Then we ran it through your formula for the annual allocation for what the subgrantee will get. We did client intake is another optional category. So we use that optional category. It's funded at $173,370. That intake category took out of our total program operations budget for anyone that said they wanted funding under the intake category. So if you were using weatherization dollars to fund intake, we kind of rolled them into this category. Under page 4, you will see another optional category of QCI, which is quality control inspections, which is allowed by DOE this year. It's funded under $400,200. It's funding QCI inspections at $1,300 per completion with a callback rate. I think it was at $600. So again, that we run that through the formula to allocate to subgrantees, but that's how we came up with that overall. So we did a base rate this year. This is our first year using these optional categories. It's the first year DOE has offered them to us. And so we are going to have to play it by ear. We may have to try to reallocate funding at some point. We may find that this was too much money and we have to push more money to program operations and do budget mods with DOE. But this is kind of to get us started and how we calculated that funding. Again, all of the program operations, health and safety, TNTA, all the optional categories they are generated through that formula to get the dollar amounts from these overall caps. But I wanted to share that with you because this is so new I wanted you to really see those optional categories. The reason we're doing those, I've talked to the network about this a lot, but the reason we're doing those optional categories is those we're pulling out those costs out of our program operations line. It will give us a break on average cost per unit, which we desperately need. The average cost per unit we know is extremely low. So this was the Department of Energy's way of trying to help give us a break on the average cost per unit since it is written into legislation. So unless we get an act by Congress, which there are a couple of bills, a bill in the Senate and a bill in the House that call for a higher average cost per unit, those again would have to be passed. So until that's done, this is kind of our DOE's way of trying to help us, give us a little bit of a break on the average cost per unit. We desperately needed that in the state, so we will put that in. Keep in mind, this is only going into the formula state plan. So once these are approved, we will have to go back and do amendments in the IIJA state plan so that we can get those same cost categories. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that and go through that. Meanwhile, I'm going to go back to the slideshow and share my screen. Give me a moment to get that done. So you should be able to see where we talked about those optional categories now. All right, so going on, we are at public comment time, and I'm going to turn that over to Ellery Gessler. Ellery?
All right, y'all. So for our public comment time, this is a time for comments on the state plan only. This is not a time to ask questions about anything else regarding program operations. If you would like to make a comment, please state your name and partner or county you represent. You will have 3 minutes for comments. I will be timing you, and I will be cutting you off if you hit that 3-minute mark. That is all I have to say. The floor is now open for comments.
Yes. All you need to do is just unmute yourselves as well.
An area.
All right, Jason. Yes, we got Audubon area. Can you state your name again?
Jason Roberts.
Okay.
Okay. Question. It's reading through the master file draft under training and certification requirements for subcontractors. I believe at one point was told that the first aid CPR training was no longer a requirement. Is that correct, or is it still in effect?
It is not under contractors. Mark, did that get changed in the state plan?
Without going back and looking on that, Kelly, I'm not for sure, but if we have removed it, I can go in to page and take that out.
Right. It's page 28 on the master file. So
Thank you, Jason.
all right, that's all I had.
Thank you, Jason.
All right. Well, if we have no more comments, then I will turn it back over to Kelly.
All right. Thank you, Ellery. Okay, so this is the end of the public hearing. We can accept, if you want to email comments to me, we will accept them through the end of the day today, which is April 5 p.m. You can email those to kreynolds, REYNOLDS, at kyhousing.org. Otherwise, this is the end of the state plan, the public hearing over the DOE formula state plan. Thanks for attending. The state plan is due on May 5th. I usually try to get that in the week prior. So we will be doing some final touches to it. We will address the training requirement on the CPR and first aid for contractors, and then we'll get all of these strike throughs out of the state plan that you saw on your drafts and get that submitted. But thank you for attending again. Thanks for taking time out of your day, and I hope everyone has a good one. Thank you.